Okay, today's lesson is on moving out to California. So what would it take for you to move out to California? Think about it for a couple seconds and then come back. For many of you, it will take a whole lot, given how far it is. But actually today it's not quite as bad as it would have been going back into the 1800s, because in the 1800s you wouldn't be able to come back at all. It would take you basically months to travel back. So for us, maybe not quite as difficult as it would have been back then. Today's lesson, as you can tell, though, is on California. When we look back in time, though, when you think about some of the motivations for people to travel and to move to places that are far away, it could be because of religion. It could be to avoid some sort of weather condition that's in the area. Maybe people are going to move because there's a lack of food in the area. If you think about the Irish potato famine, that was something that really caused or encouraged a lot of people to move out of Ireland. Maybe you have the prospects of making more money. That might be something that would allow you to move from anywhere to anywhere. Some people try to go places because they want to avoid a war that's going on. Some people because they're angry at the government. And some people just because they feel the need to get to a new area. And some people even just want adventure. So there are a lot of reasons to move out west. Today we're going to be looking at two groups of people in particular that moved out west. And our target says, I can explain what motivated people to move westward in America between 1840 and 1860. And there's our old target. Now, as a quick recap, many Americans in the mid-1800s began moving westward due to the land and resources. We talked about how Louisiana was not as desirable of a geographical location as it was to move out west due to the amount of resources that are available in Oregon. A few groups led the way to make it so that more people could get out into the west, including the mountain men and the missionaries. And we look at the mountain men, they were doing it for fur trading purposes, and they started trading with China. And missionaries were going out there to try to convert Native Americans to Christianity. Later on, many people are going to take the path that will be known as the Oregon Trail, which you played in class. And as we talked about, it was really, really difficult on that trail. Now, when you look at it here, we have our mountain men who are going to be basically fur traders. And then we also have the people who are going to be traveling out here on the Oregon Trail. As you can tell, it's a very, very long trip from Independence, Missouri, getting out into Oregon that would have taken months, and there would have been plenty of challenges along the way as well. Now, the Oregon Trail was a very long journey and very dangerous for many reasons. Well, why did people take it? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at today, are some of the reasons that people would have taken it. Now, sorry that my pencil doesn't match up. I had to change the font. Big reason number one, religion. The largest group to move out west were known as the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Over 15,000 men, women, and children took the journey in the 1840s. They were led by a man by the name of Brigham Young. The modern University of Brigham Young University is after him, which you guys might remember from last year with Jimmer fever that was going on during March Madness. Their motivation, they wanted to escape persecution because a lot of people were getting actually killed out in the east due to their religion. There were a few things that made it so that people didn't care for the Mormons. Number one, there was property owned by the community. Men could have more than one wife. And the reality is that some of these really aren't common practices anymore with the modern day religion. Their leader, Joseph Smith, was murdered by a mob in Illinois, and that was kind of like the final straw that encouraged people that they needed to leave. So they fled to practice their religion freely. They settled in Utah, and that settlement grew over time. And actually, if you look today at Utah, there still is a large population of people who practice this religion there as well. Big reason number two, get rich or die trying. Okay, maybe not literally that, but the idea is they want to get rich. Because if you go out into the West, especially to California, there's a lot of resources that are available there that we're going to be talking about here. So there's plenty of land, plenty of resources, and maybe even gold. So the San Francisco 49ers, really it's the 1849ers, the people who went out west with the hopes of getting gold in the gold rush. So gold was found in California in 1848, and more than 80,000 people made the journey to California by the next year, known as the 49ers. Immigrants included Americans, Europeans, Australians, South Americans, and also people from China. So when we think about it, people are coming from all over in hopes of getting rich from this gold in California. This really made California a very diverse place, which you can still see today. People dreamed of it being like mountains of gold, but the only problem is when you have that many people going out there, you're not going to have that many people who are getting rich because there's not that much gold that is available. Early on, it was very simple for people to get gold because they could just get it from near the surface by digging it out with a knife. However, it became more difficult and less profitable over time, and actually was really only the big companies that made a lot of money because they could afford the machinery to go underground further. And what ends up happening is most people get rich, or I'm sorry, do not get rich, but actually go broke while trying to get rich, and they get kind of stuck there over in the West. This created a lot of issues, including the fact that when you have a lot of people in an area that was not yet developed, and on top of that, there isn't any crime, or there is not any police force or anything like that, and people are poor, it leads to a lot of crime, and there ended up becoming a lot of vigilantes as well. Vigilantes being like Batman, people who basically decide to take the law into their own hands. So when you look at it overall, the two big groups who are going out west, the Mormons as well as the 49ers, are the ones who really helped to populate this area and make it so that it would become a very American land here in the near future. Now, some questions to think about. Why did Mormons move westward? Why were so many people lured to California? And how is this going to affect the United States as a whole? Think about these questions here for a minute and then come back and I'll give you some answers. Now, first off, why did Mormons move westward? We talked about this because they wanted to escape religious persecution, and they did settle out in Utah. Why were many people lured to California? The hopes of getting rich with gold, because there was a lot of gold found there. And how is this going to affect the United States as a whole? It's going to make it so the United States is now a little bit more spread out, and they're going to want to connect to their land as well as possible. That's an important thing to understand as we connect this back to Manifest Destiny, the goal to expand from sea to shining sea. Well, now we have to connect the East and the West a little bit better, and that's going to lead to a need for more transportation, or I should say better transportation technology. And we'll see that this is going to come soon with railroads. And lastly, I didn't ask you this before, but are vigilantes good or bad? It's something interesting to think about. Do we think that people should be able to take the law into their own hands without being given the approval by a governmental body? When you think about Batman, it might sound cool and nice, but what's to say that a vigilante is actually going to do what's right versus what's wrong? So, interesting thing to think about at the very least. And that is today's lesson on moving out westward. Make sure that you come to class ready to go tomorrow talking about the two groups of people who did. Kind of muddled.